West Virginia star running back Jahiem White is entering the portal? As of like 2 days ago, it looked like he was staying. This is the Mountaineer Moment, your source for all things West Virginia football and basketball. From pregame to postgame coverage and breaking news, we've got you covered. Let's go. Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of Mountaineer Moment. My name's Troy. This is episode 111 of Mountaineer Moment, your source for all things West Virginia football and basketball. And this one wasn't one that I was planning on doing because we didn't know this was going to happen. But Jahiem White has made his announcement that he's planning on entering the NCAA transfer portal. The standout running back for West Virginia obviously had his season come to an end in Game 2 against Ohio this past season, 2025. With that knee injury and, sidelined for the rest of the season. But for two years prior, he was really, really good. Stand out as a freshman, and you hate to see this news. And it's really, really confusing because of some signs that were pointing to Jahiem White staying. And those signs come from Jahiem White's own Instagram page. If you've kept up with that or you've seen that in the news or read that in articles recently, it sure looked like as of not 2 months ago or 3 months ago, but as of 2 days ago, over the weekend, Jahiem White was responding to fans, comments on Instagram, thank you for staying, thank you for your loyalty, and he was like, yeah, and someone asked if something about Scotty Fox, and he just made just a real quick comment, right? It's not like Jahiem White was sitting on his Instagram saying, I am returning to West Virginia Mountaineer football in 2026. That wasn't like he came out and said that. But by the way he was interacting with these, posts on Instagram, it looked like he was for sure staying. Someone made a comment about, him being in gold and blue next year or something. And he said, yeah, he posted it with the Country Roads, audio link to it, John Denver. Again, he didn't deliberately say, I am staying, but it sure looked like he was going to. And there were, even signs throughout the year, him supporting his guys, watching on, TV, whatever, being at the game. I think he was at the Colorado game at home. And so it really looked like from the moment he got injured to yesterday or to today, it looked like he was going to stay. And again, a lot of recent news was like, man, okay, it looks like literally there were probably articles you read that said Jahiem White's staying. Look at his Instagram. It looks like he's staying. This is great news for the Mountaineers. The standout running back. He's going to be back in the uniform next year, going to get healthy and going to have another breakout season. And then this news comes on Monday, and it's that he's planning on entering the portal. So we're going to talk about that. I would say we're not trying to speculate, but we are going to speculate a little bit as far as what in the world could have happened between a couple days ago, in the last 48 hours and today. Or are we just misreading kind of what he was interacting with fans on his Instagram page? We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the West Virginia running back room as it sits right now because Dior Hubbard also entering the portal. We'll talk about that in a moment. And then we'll take a trip down memory lane with Jahiem White because, again, if he is indeed leaving, going to find a new home in college football, maybe it's with Neal Brown in North Texas. I don't know. I don't know what's going on because that is something obviously that developed over the last week. Congrats to Neal Brown getting the head coaching job at North Texas. Wish him the best. Certainly, no ill feelings there toward toward his time in Morgantown. But thanks for the memories, Jahiem. We'll end with just a few things, that stand out just based on his Mountaineer career, if this is indeed the end. So, what happened here? What happened? After Jahiem's freshman season in 2023, when he had 842 yards and he averaged 7.7, that's correct, 7.7 yards per carry as a freshman. Just an absolute standout season for him in the backfield in a really good Mountaineer season in which they, won, 8 games. And he did his thing. Or how many did we win that year? 9 games? Yeah, I'm tripping. Either way, 9-4 we finished the season. 9-4, including the bowl win. That's it, including the bowl. So, Jahiem White, freshman year, burst onto the scene. Didn't play against Penn State that first game. Burst onto the scene against Duquesne. had a 110-yard performance, and he was off and running from there. Again, 7.7 yards per carry is video game-like, and even that's a stretch because he was incredible as a freshman. He had a really, really solid sophomore campaign as well, did Jahiem White. But what happened? Because after his freshman season, that was kind of what I was getting to. After his freshman season, I was like, I'm scared Jaheim's going to leave. I was, even at that point. And then he didn't. He stayed. C.J. Donaldson even stayed. And so in 2024, you had this two-headed monster at running back. And then, obviously, we know the story. West Virginia's season did not pan out the way we were thinking it would. But in 2024, he put up really good numbers again. 149 carries, 845 yards, 7 touchdowns on the ground, an average of 5.7 yards per carry, which is really, really good. But 7.7 is just nuts. Anyway, after both of those seasons, you're like, I hope Jahiem stays. I hope Jahiem stays. In the era of the transfer portal, you just never know what's going to happen. And then Neal Brown left, or was relieved of his duties, and Rich Rod comes in. It's like, okay, I hope he can retain Jahiem White. C.J. Donaldson off to Ohio State. He left. Jahiem White stayed. Was looking to be the feature back. Was looking to put up monster numbers. Then unfortunately gets injured his second game of the season, and just a tremendous blow to the team, tremendous blow to Jahiem as well. Like it was just not good, not a good feeling for Mountaineer fans everywhere. And then it's the fear then again strikes. If you're thinking, all right, well, I hope Jahiem, first and foremost, his health, he gets back to playing football next year. And then it's like, I hope he plays with West Virginia again. And again, as a very, very recent, I think it's so noteworthy and newsworthy because of like what the heck happened, because it sure looked like, according to Jahiem himself, like it looked like he was going to be in Morgantown again. So what happened? Well, there's a few, I guess, possibilities. Rich Rodriguez mentioned, and obviously Mountaineers won. They've done a great job recruiting. Number one recruiting class in the Big 12 after National Signing Day. Just incredible stuff. From West Virginia. Lots of 3-stars in there, I get it, but they're recruiting lots of 4-stars and lots of talent too, including a running back that we'll get to here momentarily. But recruiting a thing, but Rich Rod mentioned not too long ago, like there's going to be some difficult changes we're going to have to make. Was that related to Jahiem White? I don't know. I saw some articles after Jahiem made his announcement that they mentioned that quote from Rich Rodriguez. Well, some difficult decisions, difficult things are going to happen. Is there... I'm willing to bet that there are Power Conference schools interested in what Jahiem White can bring to the table. I'm fairly certain of that. So he's going to get offers. Is it just as simple as he wants to go find a new home and see what it's like? Or is it something deeper? Like Rich Rod and he just, couldn't see eye to eye. He wanted to get more money. They said no. Like, I don't know. That could be a possibility. Neal Brown could be a factor in this. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Neal Brown obviously recruited him to Morgantown. Neal Brown now the head coach at North Texas. Does Jahiem want to go there? Could be that. Could be a lot of different things. Could be like, again, Jahiem White sees the talent that's coming into this running back room in Morgantown. But that, to me, like, healthy Jahiem White was going to be the starting running back in 2026. It's not going to be this incoming freshman. Unless you get an absolute dog out of the transfer portal, like it was going to be Jahiem White. And could it just simply be the fact, and this could be certainly a case, Jahiem was upset that this team went 4-8, the struggles that they had. He saw, the writing on the wall throughout the season. He saw, and maybe he doesn't, even though a lot of fans and coaches and players are optimistic about what West Virginia is going to do to build in 2026, Jahiem White, maybe he simply wasn't. Maybe he said, you know what, I thought that was going to be this year, and I was wrong. I don't want to be wrong again. This team didn't play well. This team didn't block well for running backs. We didn't run the ball that well. We didn't pass the ball well. This offense was terrible, and I want out. Could be as simple as that. I don't know. There's probably the reason is something we haven't even thought about or talked about. But whatever the case, again, a couple days ago, it looked like Jahiem White was staying, and all of a sudden, he's in the transfer portal. West Virginia, certainly his, in 2025 entering into the season with all the new players, new faces, new coaches, Jahiem White was the guy that you knew on this team. And unfortunately, his season was ended prematurely in Game 2 in the first half against Ohio. Right, that was just terrible. And now it's onward. Obviously, wish Jahiem the best. There's no ill feelings toward him here. I hope he gets healthy, and I hope he goes off, and I hope he makes a career out of it and is playing on Sundays soon, right? Like that would be amazing for him and even for Mountaineer fans. Because again, whatever his reason is for leaving, whether it's coaching or play style or money or Neal Brown or something else we've said or haven't said, that decision's his, and he's entering the portal. Now, and again, very, very rarely do you see a guy enter the portal and stay at his former school. And again, I think a guy like Jahiem White is gonna get some offers, gonna get some coaches knocking on his door, calling his phone right now, trying to get him on their team for 2026 because he's that kind of talent. Now, what this means West Virginia-wise right now, 2026, as we look toward the future. I mentioned a moment ago, same day, probably a couple hours after the Jahiem White news broke, redshirt freshman Dior Hubbard intends to enter the transfer portal. So, because it's kind of interesting as you play this thing out just in real time today, Dior Hubbard, there was a plethora of running backs, obviously, that played for West Virginia this season, but Dior Hubbard was the team's leading rusher. 96 carries, 335 yards, 4 touchdowns, 3.5 yards a carry, and did some things in a couple games that were very, very impressive for the redshirt freshman. Had 108 yards on 29 carries against Houston, against Colorado. That was his best 2-game stretch. Back-to-back games, he had 16 carries, 64 yards to go along with 94 yards receiving against Colorado. So back-to-back games, he put together solid performances, and now he's leaving. And so after Jahiem White, that news breaks, it's like, okay, well, look at the running back room we got now. Look at the couple freshmen that we got coming in. Look at Dior Hubbard. Maybe he'll take another step in his game because he, as of right now, in early December, when you think about August of 2026, if this is the roster as it sits, it's like, okay, Dior Hubbard, you're the guy. You're going to be probably the first guy getting the first carry in game 1. And now he's gone too a couple hours later. So then it's back to the drawing board again. Dior Hubbard gone. And the running back room now, you got on their roster at the moment, Clay Ash, Sincere Bowers, Andre Devine, Cannon Katzer, still eligible, haven't announced their intention to enter the transfer portal, but they're still here. And so now it goes to kind of Sincere Bowers. He did some things this year that you liked. Obviously, the running back room as a whole needs to be more consistent. And then, obviously, we go back to National Signing Day here in 2026 on this roster. Amari Latimer, running back who West Virginia flipped from Wisconsin, really high-level 4-star recruit who had offers from everywhere, and now he's coming to Morgantown. I don't know if Jahiem White saw that and said, I don't know. Because, again, I don't think that was the case either, because C.J. Donaldson was here for his sophomore year, Jahiem White's sophomore year, when he averaged 7.7 yards a carry as a freshman, and they both decided to stay. So, and again, I don't think an incoming freshman scares Jahiem White off because he would have been the guy in 2026. I fully believe that. But Amari Latimer's here. Major flip, major signing for West Virginia. Then you got Sir Paul Cheeks, Jesus in Cleats Cheeks, as he goes by. And he's coming to Morgantown. Had a season-ending ACL injury during his senior year, but we'll see when he gets right and gets healthy. But he's here, super fast running back that the Mountaineers have brought in. And again, Amari here, flipping him from Wisconsin. Wisconsin, we know what they've had at running back over the last several years. Talented running backs. They're not running back you, right, by any means, but they've had some guys over the year, and you just flipped their commit to come to Morgantown to play for Rich Rodriguez. So you like what you see there. So, there's still reason for optimism, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm not going to miss Jahiem White. and what he brings to the table. We were all looking forward to him exploding in the Rich Rod offense in 2025, and all we got was a game and a half, not even game and a half of Jahiem White and Rich Rod's system, which is disappointing because in 2026, again, I would have entered that season just as hopeful that he was going to come off injury strong. West Virginia's O-line was going to get better, and I believe they will, and Jahiem White was going to have himself a year. Again, that could still happen. He could come back, but I don't know what bridges were burnt. I don't know what has transpired this week over the last 48 hours. I don't know if Jahiem White and what he was, the way he was interacting on his Instagram story was, still knowing that he was going to enter the portal in a couple days. Right? That's the question that we're never going to have an answer to, I doubt, right? Jahiem White, when he was doing that on Instagram a couple days ago, did he know he was going to enter the portal in a couple days? Or was he set on coming to Morgantown? And if he was set on coming to Morgantown or staying in Morgantown, then what happened in the last 48 hours? What in the world happened? I don't know. The world may never know. But Jahiem White is intending to enter the transfer portal. I'm going to just go through some of his games so we can take a trip down memory lane with Jahiem White and just share a little bit about what he did as a Mountaineer. Again, I gave you the season whole numbers over the last 2 years. Very impressive running back during his freshman and sophomore campaigns in Morgantown. Again, 7.7 yards a carry, then 5.7 in 2024. 2025, that game against Robert Morris in the season opener, he had a good game, 2 touchdowns, 93 rushing yards. Had 40 rushing yards against Ohio, including a 30-something yard touchdown. That was West Virginia's only touchdown of the day against Ohio, and then this season-ending injury happening not too long after that. But Jahiem White, if you just look, through his games, there's a few memories to me that stick out from his freshman campaign. Again, that 9-win season, picking up the bowl win in the Duke's Mayo Bowl against North Carolina to get that 9th win. But against BYU, as a freshman at home, we put the hammer down on them on a night game in Morgantown, 37-7. Jahiem White was unstoppable in that one. 16 carries, 146 yards. That's 9 yards a carry. That'll help that 7.7 average. 2 weeks later in Morgantown again against Cincinnati, another beatdown that West Virginia put on the Bearcats, 42-21. Jahiem White, 21 carries, 204 yards, and a touchdown to go along with a 75-yard touchdown reception. Monster day for him. The very next week, on the road against Baylor, last regular season game, 34-31 victory. He had that game-winning touchdown with a 29-yard touchdown with, 30 seconds remaining. I don't remember exactly now, 2023, but I had 133 yards on 17 carries in that one, which is about on average for him because that factored to about 7.8 yards a carry. So that was just what he was doing all season long as a freshman. But those are some of the memories that stand out. Obviously, the go-ahead touchdown against Baylor on the road against Baylor was massive. He had sophomore year, obviously the team struggled. It wasn't a 9-win season like the year prior. But he still did his thing. Had a 158-yard performance against Oklahoma State, 124 yards, and a blowout loss to Texas Tech. Bowl game didn't do a whole lot against Memphis last season, but had 100 yards against Albany and 92-yard performance against Arizona in that 31-26 win on the road. I was in the stands for that one out in Arizona. Nico Marchiol leading the team to victory in his home state of Arizona. But again, 92 yards for Jahiem White in that game. But again, trip down memory lane. It's crazy to think that he won't be in a Mountaineer uniform next year. Again, heart breaks with how his season ended prematurely this year. And again, Jahiem, wish you nothing but the best if this really is the end of your time in Morgantown. Thanks for the memories. Thanks for what you brought game in and game out. Sorry your season ended the way it did and your Mountaineer tenure ended the way it did. You got a fan in me, you got a fan, and I'm sure a lot of people watching this video and in the comment section when we think of Jahiem White and what he brought. So, again, this is episode 111. A little bit of speculating as to what in the world happened. Still obviously very curious, but it is what it is. The kid makes his decision to enter the portal, and I hope he finds success wherever he goes. So, episode 111, Mountaineer Moment, your source for all things West Virginia football and basketball. Hit that subscribe button for us. and we will see you next time.